Hello and welcome to another episode of the CUFI Weekly. And this week I am talking about a topic which I've talked about in previous weeks, but this is from a completely new angle, and that is rewarding terrorism. Now, of course, we've seen those morally bankrupt people on our campuses and our streets cheering for Hamas, supporting the horrific massacres of October 7th, and essentially seeing what is happening in the Middle East as a zero-sum game. That Israel is completely responsible and that Hamas is some sort of philanthropic organization which focuses on feeding the hungry, when quite the opposite is true, as they steal aid from the people of Gaza and hide under Gaza like rats. What I'm going to be talking about is the absolute moral failure of some of the world's democratic and free nations. About a week ago, the leader of France, Emmanuel Macron, announced that France would be recognizing a Palestinian state in September of this year. Now, there are so many perspectives I could give on this, but let's keep it short. It's absurd and frankly disgusting. For a Western democratic government to say that they're going to recognize a Palestinian makes absolutely no sense other than rewarding terrorism. It shows the absolute peak of moral cowardice. But that's not all. So over the last few days, there was a conference held by the UN about the two-state solution. The two-state solution, which has long been floated as a foreign policy dogma, is that there needs to be two states for two people, a Jewish Israel and an Arab Palestinian state. What is interesting is that the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Keir Starmer, his government released a statement saying that if Israel does not agree to a ceasefire with Hamas, and remember that US and Israeli negotiators left Doha this week because of Hamas's unwillingness to agree a ceasefire, but he didn't mention that. His government simply said that if Israel doesn't agree to a ceasefire in Gaza, that if it doesn't change its ways, that Great Britain will recognize a Palestinian state in September of this year also. Now, this is absolutely bizarre and frankly disgusting. Israel was attacked. Its hostages are still being held. But instead of referencing that, you're using this as a threat. You're using this tactic as a threat against the Jewish state. Now imagine this. Imagine when the Troubles, as they're known, in Northern Ireland were at their peak, and British forces were accused of heavy-handedness and other crimes against the civilian population. Imagine if the United States had been, well, we don't like how you're handling this, and if you do not withdraw your troops in the next few months, we're going to recognize Northern Ireland as part of Ireland. Now, in the aftermath of this UN conference about the two-state solution, a number of countries came out to support this endeavor and said that they would also be announcing that they recognize a Palestinian state. And it shows that these nations aren't doing this because they feel it is the right thing to do. If they approach this from a perspective saying that they believe that there should be a Palestinian Arab state and that they are going to recognize that, that's one thing. Whether I agree or disagree, that is one thing. But they are using this as a way to blackmail Israel, as a way to restrain Israel from defending itself, as a way to stop Israel fighting to get its hostages back. And you want to ask why Hamas is so unwilling to sign a ceasefire agreement? Because no doubt they're feeling emboldened. Because the level of cowardice we're seeing from Western leaders, so-called democracies, so-called free nations who should be standing against terrorism, countries who have faced terrorism themselves. That is why I will applaud what the United States government did to boycott this conference, to boycott this rhetoric. Now is not the time for this conversation about one state or two states or any of this. The focus, the conversation is about bringing the hostages home and ensuring Hamas can no longer terrorize anybody, Israeli or Gaza. But these governments are looking for a quick win. They're looking to appease the court of public opinion rather than do what's morally right. And that is why it's up to every single one of us to speak up, to tell the truth, and ensure that we do not go down this route of cowardice, moral bankruptcy that too many governments in Europe have. This is Kasim Hafeez for the CUFI Weekly. For Zion's sake, do not remain silent. Thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe so you get a notification every time a new episode hits. And if you want to check out some of our previous episodes, and we've got some really good ones, click on one of the thumbnails and that will take you right there. And finally, if you want to know more about CUFI and the work we do, go to cufi.org to check out all the resources we have available free to you.